Hello everyone, my name is Corin and welcome to Corin's Library. Today, as you can see on the screen, if you're on YouTube at least, I'm going to be reading My Fun Academy by Emily Ross. This is the book for Season 1. I hope you enjoy. I will have the link in the description of the Spotify location to the description of the Spotify audiobook or episode, whatever, and in the YouTube video as well, if I can do that. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Episode 1. Chapter 1, apologies. Chapter 1. Happy Summers. Simpson Middle School, Room 46, Friday at 3:40 hours. Pencils scratched against papers in excitement as the last minutes ticked down. I leaned back in my chair to relax while everyone was still writing their 3 paragraphs. Everyone except Kaylani. I looked across the classroom to see my best friend relaxing just as much as I was. We never struggled in science. "All right, class, let's get those papers in," Mr. K eventually said, and students excitedly walked up to turn in their papers. We were to write how we felt about the last day of school and how science would impact our summer. Thankfully, the report wasn't for a grade. Nothing for the past 2 weeks had been graded, which was one of the best benefits of finishing junior high. "Jesse," Kehlani whispered, leaning across the aisle. "It's 3:44. I glanced at the clock that hung over Mr. K's desk to see that it was, in fact, 3:44. Summer break started in a matter of seconds. I rubbed my hands together in excitement, sat up high in my seat. The other students grew excited and checked their phones to see the exact second of the minute it was. Lion and Michael came over to Kaylani and me. "It's almost summer break," Lion announced. He and Michael were grinning so wide from excitement, and I felt myself smiled as well. 10! Some of the kids started counting in the back of the class. 9! My eyes widened, and I grabbed my book bag from underneath my chair. 8! 7! 6! Kaylani and I went with others to the front door and then started to join the countdown. 5! 4! 3! 2! 1! "Happy summer," Mr. K called, just as the bell rang. Someone blew the door open, and everyone piled into the hall. Kehlani grabbed my hands so we wouldn't lose each other, and we raced with the crowd heading for the front doors. The halls were filled with laughter and calls of joy. I glanced behind me and saw a lot more kids running from the classroom doors. Kay pulled my hand, and a large group of kids began to emerge into the school lobby. We picked up speed, making a pointless effort to be the first people out of the front doors. Principal Reeves said something on the intercom as we approached the front doors, but I didn't hear. Not because it was inaudible, but because it was the last thing I was worried about, especially since the lobby was filled with armed policemen. The heat was overwhelming, but I was too scared to move. I felt the blazing sunlight on the back of my neck and was relieved when I got to move up in line. I looked at the boy in front of me. He was a ginger, with a green top and green shoes that I had seen my brother wear. The officer pulled him forward and started to pat him down. I turned my head left and right, looking for Kaylani, but she was nowhere in sight. "Next!" My head jerked back to the face of the officer. The ginger who had just been checked ran toward the street to meet up with his friends. Kaylani had to be there as well. I walked up to the officer, who removed my backpack and handed it to the another. The officer with my backpack used his pistol to examine the inside. The other officer patted down my arms and legs. Being surrounded by a lot of guns made my stomach turn. Even though the people holding them were supposed to protect me, I didn't feel very safe. "Clear," said the officer with my book bag. He handed it to me and motioned me away. I swung my bag over my shoulder and went in the direction I'd seen the boy in front of me go. On the pavement were the kids who had already been checked, at least 100 students. It wasn't too hard to find Kaylani, who was sitting on the curb by the streetlight. I rushed over and sat next to her. "There you are," she smiled. "Ready to go?" "I guess." We stood and waited for the pedestrian signal to allow us in the crosswalk. "Do you know what that was all about?" I asked. "Apparently some kid took a gun to school or something." She shrugged. I scrunched my eyebrows and turned around to face the school, which now seemed like a death zone. How are you so chill about that? Because we're alive and we're fine. I wasn't fully surprised that Kehlani was so relaxed. She'd never shown fear since I'd met her, which was basically since we were born. The pedestrian signal conducted us to cross the street again, where we met up with Michael and Lion at the next street light. You guys alright? Asked Lion. Yeah, we're fine, Kehlani responded. Are we still in for ice cream later? Definitely, Michael said. I tried to shake off the fact that something so dangerous had happened at school and reminded myself that I would never have to return. I can't wait to get some vanilla, I said. Kehlani nudged my arm. You're so basic, she complained. We kept discussing ice cream flavors until we reached the corner that we'd split up at. Ice cream in an hour. Don't forget, Michael told everyone. Michael and Kehlani crossed the street to the left and headed for their neighborhood. Lion went straight down the street, and I turned right on the pavement. I took out my phone, plugged in my earbuds, and listened to music for what would be the next 4 minutes heading home. One of the tall buildings came more and more into view as I approached. Miles, my older brother, was walking towards the apartment complex from the other way. I raced to the front door of the buildings, but he made it before I did. Slowpoke, he said, before leaning over to catch his breath. At least I'm not as tired as you, I joked. I went into the lobby and waved to the doorman, who waved back. Miles came up behind me, and we stepped into the elevator heading for the third floor. The elevator soon stopped, but the hallway was full of kids talking outside of their rooms. Miles and I went to ours, where he unlocked the door and we went inside. As soon as I closed the door, our living room was much quieter than the hallway full of yapping teenagers. Mom, we're home, he called into the living room. Stop yelling, child, I'm right here. Mom was sitting on the couch and typing on her laptop. Temmie, our Pomeranian, was asleep at her feet. How was the last day of school? Great for me, Miles said, plopping down next to Mom. I'm going to a friend's house later. That's nice, she smiled before looking at me. And how about you, Jessie? I closed the front door before answering. It was pretty good. I'm going for ice cream in an hour. Miles grabbed the remote from the coffee table and started to flip through television channels. Where's Dad? He asked. I went into the kitchen for a snack, but still listening for Mom's answer. He's having to work late. All adults have summer break, like you kids. That sucks, said Miles. I reached into the cabinet for a box of animal crackers and felt my phone buzz in my book bag. After setting down the snack, I reached for my phone to see that Kehlani had texted me. 4:20 p.m. Kay. Hey Jess, get your bike. Michael had something to do last minute, so we're meeting up early if it's okay. I responded, typing, yeah, that's fine, before telling Mom that I'd be leaving earlier than I thought. After instructing me to stay safe, I was free to excitedly go back to the elevator. There were tons of kids celebrating their first day of summer break in the lobby, and I could hear them before the elevator doors even opened. The tall windows covering the front wall in the lobby allowed me to see Kehlani on her bike riding toward the complex. I'd always admired her bike, chrome white with sleek black handlebars. It was always kept clean and prized by my best friend herself. She was steadying my bike with one hand, its chain wrapped around the handlebars, and pulled it along as she rode. She had already used the key I'd given her years ago to unlock my bike from the racks outside. At the sight of me, Kehlani motioned me over. She took her scrunchie from her hair and redid her ponytail while I raced outside. Hey, she smiled. Hi, I responded. I'm surprised we're meeting so early. Me too, but we wouldn't want Michael to not be able to go. Yeah, he'd miss out on the vanilla. Kehlani rolled her eyes and turned her bike around. You're vanilla obsessed, she told me. My bike steadied under my climbing onto it. One of my feet pushed against the ground while my other started to pedal. My bike took me past Kehlani, and I turned my head to say, Can't catch me. She was obviously up for the challenge. We sped up on the pavement, Kehlani just behind me. I pedaled faster across the street and could hear the wheels of her bike catching up. My hands squeezed on the brakes that hung beneath the handlebars, and I turned left. Cars were going the opposite way on the street, and the wind from the momentum started to lift my hair. The ice cream parlor was just a block away. The wind made my eyes water as my pedals turned faster and my bike rolled down the sidewalk that led to the parlor. My hands squeezed on the brakes that led me to a stop, and I climbed off the bike. Kehlani came rolling behind me, stopping to my right. A few more cars drove by. You got lucky, Kehlani smiled, rolling her bike toward the parlor. We pushed our bikes into some open rocks next to the building. My bike looked like garbage next to hers. The blue paint had begun to peel off the handlebars, and the wheels looked like plastic in the sunlight. Kehlani and I used our chains to tie the bicycles to the racks. I asked her for the copy of my keys that she had, and used it to lock my bike to the rack. Finally, we were ready to enter the parlor. Kehlani took my hand in a grip just as tight as when we were barreling down the school hallways not too long ago. I shivered at the thought of going back. As we approached the parlor and pushed the door open, a bell rang overhead. Patricia, who we called Pat, was standing at the front counter and was delighted to see us. Pat was a junior in high school and had always worked at the ice cream parlor part-time. She was super funny and cheerful, and her personality was admirable. "Good afternoon, guys," she smiled brightly. Kehlani and I walked up to the counter to greet her. "Good afternoon," we said. "If you're heating it up with your friends, they're down at booth 8. Patricia pointed to her left. I looked where she directed to see Michael and Lion laughing at one of the booths by the far window. Kehlani rested her arms on the counter. "How was the last day of school for you?" "Pretty great. Honestly, I can't believe I'm going to be a senior next year." "Congrats," I told her. "You better hurry up before all the ice cream melts in the seat," Kehlani said to me. I nodded and told Pat, "Have a nice day." We went down the aisle and waved at Michael, who could see us approaching. Michael tapped Lion, who turned around and smiled. They were sitting on opposite sides of the booth, and each moved over to make room for us. I slid into the seat next to Lion and leaned under the table. "What are we getting?" Kehlani asked. "You know what she's getting," Lion said, pointing his thumb sideways to me. "Vanilla is great, okay?" I defended myself. The others laughed. "I think I'll have chocolate. With sprinkles, of course," said Michael. "Yeah, me too," Lion agreed. "How about you, Kay?" "Sort of inclined to try that vanilla," she said, pursing her lips and looking at me. "Do it," I told her. "It'll change your life." "Yeah, it might kill you," Lion laughed, and Michael joined in. A tall woman with a white t-shirt and white pants and a brown apron wrapped around her waist came up to our table. As she approached, I continued my habit of looking at the name tag on the shirts of every waiter or waitress I'd met. Hers said Carson. She's the typical line we'd heard all the waiters and waitresses say at every table. It always ended with, "How can I help you?" The boys ordered their chocolate first. She wrote down the orders on her notepad. "I'll have vanilla ice cream," I said. "No toppings." "I'll have the same," Kehlani chimed in. Boy's eyes widened in surprise. "What?" Kehlani shrugged. "It might be good." I looked sideways at Lion, who rolled his eyes playfully. "Your orders will be here soon," Carson said, writing a couple more things on her notepad before heading off. "That's a pretty big risk, Kay," Lion told Kehlani. "Oh my gosh," I groaned, turning away. The others laughed again. "On a serious note," Kehlani said, eyeballing Lion. "What are you doing today? What are you doing later, Michael? I mean, you had us come here early for a reason." "Yeah, right." Michael shifted in his seat. "I'm going to Southern California for a while." I raised my eyebrows and leaned forward. "Southern California?" I echoed. "That's epic." "And far," Lion added. "How long is a while?" "Not sure. I think for the whole summer." Kehlani's mouth dropped, and she lowered her voice. "My cousin lives there. What city are you going to?" "Not sure about that either," answered Michael. "I just heard I'd be leaving in an hour or two, and I wanted to meet with you guys." "Well, when were you going to tell us this?" Lion asked. Michael shrugged. "I was going to wait until after we were back outside, but it doesn't matter much now, does it?" "I can't believe you're going so soon," I frowned. Michael nodded but didn't say anything. We started to talk about other things that weren't about Michael's trip, mainly to ensure he didn't feel like he'd be missing out all the way. Mid-conversation, Carson returned with a tray of holders for our ice cream cones. She handed Kaylani and me our vanilla ice cream cones first, and then handed us the chocolate ones to pass down. As she walked away, Kaylani examined her ice cream cone. "It's not a bomb," I laughed, taking a bite of mine. She drew a deep breath and took a bite, gazing off toward the booth across from us. I leaned forward as she turned to face me and smiled. "Okay, it's not that bad. Told you guys." I turned to Lion and Michael. Michael rolled his eyes, and Lion started to dive into his own ice cream cone. "I'll try it someday," Michael told me before diving into his own ice cream. After more talking between sweet bites of ice cream, we devoured our treats and were ready to head out. Michael had brought enough money to pay for the ice creams, but when he offered to also buy us candy to take home, we politely declined. Kehlani and I went to the bike racks while Michael and Lion grabbed their skateboards. Guys think they're so cool with skateboards, Kehlani scoffed, looking towards Michael and Lion. She used the key to unlock my bike, which I took off the rack and wrapped the chain around the handlebars. To be fair, skateboards are pretty cool, I told her. Bikes are better. We rolled our bikes to the pavement where Michael and Lion were talking. Michael's phone rang, and he dug it out of his pocket. He raised an eyebrow as he looked at the screen. Guys, I gotta go. Apparently I'm leaving sooner than I thought. Kehlani pulled us in for a group hug, and it was saddening to think that we'd be missing someone from our group hugs for the whole summer. Be safe, man, Lion told Michael, giving him a separate bro hug, as I'd heard Michael's called him. Have fun, Michael, I said. Thanks, guys, he said. I'll text y'all a lot, trust me. Bye, Kay, Jess, Lion. He made a show of looking to each of us. Don't miss me too much. He dropped his skateboard from his hand and pushed off down the pavement. Lion dropped his to the ground as well and set one foot on the ground. Have a good day, ladies, he said in an accent, tipping his non-existent hat. He started to go the opposite way Michael had. Lion flipped his board horizontally and stretched out his arms to balance himself as gravity pulled him back down. He landed perfectly, gaining speed. Show off! Kehlani called after him. I could hear him laughing as he got further away. I'll miss Michael, I admitted. I turned around to set up my bike and prepared to head home. Same, Kehlani agreed. I pulled myself on the bike but stopped as Kehlani tapped my shoulder. See that? She pointed slightly down the pavement. I pushed down my kickstand and left my bike before following Kehlani. There was a shiny charm that was shaped like a cross. It was silver, just like Michael's favorite one. Oh no, Kehlani sighed, picking it up. I can take it to him, I offered. Kehlani turned to me and raised an eyebrow as if to say, you share. I nodded and took the cross, examining it myself. Must have fallen off his necklace, I observed, before looking back up to Kehlani. I've got it, don't worry about it. We returned to our bikes and I slid the charm in my pocket. Get it to him before he leaves, she told me. I will, I assured her. We kicked up our kickstands and rode down the pavement, her ahead of me this time. The breeze felt great, especially in such heat. I drifted across the street and smiled at Kehlani, who parted left. I had to keep going straight in order to get Michael's house. The neighborhood looked a lot different than mine. All the houses were at least 3 stories, and most people had beautiful front yards. A lot of kids gathered in various places on the sides of the road or outside of home. Nobody seemed to care that a new girl was riding a bike down their neighborhood. Then again, the neighborhood was massive, so much so that I doubted people would notice if there was someone that didn't live there. I could spot Michael's house nearby, which was a bright royal blue and had a large moving van parked outside. I used the brakes to stop, hopped off my bike, and I leaned it against the front fence. As I went through the front yard, I fished for the charm in my pocket. I knocked on the front door a few times and waited for an answer. Michael? I called. It's Jesse. I have something for you. No answer. I turned around to face the moving van. Was Michael not home yet? Did they already leave? Despite my conscience advising against it, I opened the storm door and reached to turn the doorknob. As I did, the door opened. Since there were people nearby and I didn't want to seem like I was debating on breaking in, I slid inside the house. The foyer felt so much larger than it had the last time I was there. That was probably due to the lack of furniture. I closed the door and called out for Michael, but heard no response. The chandelier in the foyer was beautifully polished, and the wood flooring was shinier than before. There was plastic wrap hanging from each doorway. Entering the living room, everything had vanished. The coffee table, television, electric fireplace. The curtains were gone, and the windows were sealed tightly with silver locks. Carefully approaching the far wall, I saw a note hanging where Michael's old family painting used to be. I pulled the note off the wall and squinted to read the formal writing. It is with our greatest apologies that we leave on such short notice, and we will not return until the summer is over. Do not take much from this adjustment. Rather, focus on staying cool during this season. That's a note for you and me. Despite the dreadful hot weather, continue to be active, especially in swimming. Continue in your studies as well, especially science and math. Overall, make the best of your summer, even with our absence, so the summer may be a time we will never forget. Happy summer, the Brown household. The writing looked like Mrs. Brown's, Michael's mother. Messy but admirable. Yet this time there wasn't much admiration in the words written. I folded the note and gripped it tightly in my hand before starting to leave. I didn't want to stay in the house any longer than I had to. As I had emerged into the foyer, an engine started outside the front door. I raced out the door, leaving it wide open, and ran toward the moving van, which was taking off. There would be no time to race after it, unless I had something that could go multiple miles an hour. My bike was the closest thing to it. The van started to move faster as I climbed onto my bike and started to pedal. I studied as well as I could with one hand on the handlebars, while the other took my phone from my pocket and tried to swipe to the camera. My feet pedaled faster to try and get a close look at the driver. Whoever they were obviously didn't want to be seen. I finally reached the camera and started taking pictures of the sides of the van. The side I was on had the name Cashell's Moving Company and a phone number. The truck picked up speed and I couldn't go any faster considering we were going uphill. I started to slow down but spammed the photo button to capture the license plate as many times as possible. The bike became just as worn out as I was and came to a stop. Got off, drew in deep breaths, and swiped on my phone to ensure I had got enough pictures. There were enough pictures, but my brain was too fried to piece things together. I turned my bike around and saw kids of young age playing with a basketball on the pavement. More kids emerged from a house gathering in my way. It was going to be a long ride home. That was chapter 1 of iPhone Academy by Emily Ross. Tune in next week for chapter 2. Originally, my plan was to do two chapters a week, but due to the fact that my headphones are unfortunately dying, I have to plug them in for a little bit. Thankfully, they don't usually take too long to charge. Unfortunately, I cannot find the other cord that I used for my headphones, which likely means, well, I can't charge it at night like I used to, so episodes may be very weird in terms of posting. However, I will still try my best to get them out on Monday. Thank you for listening in. Have an amazing day, and make sure to read. It helps your brain. See you guys next week. Peace out.